Today we're going to look at the LeetCode question. It's a second question, add two numbers. So this reads that you are given two non-empty linked lists representing two non-negative numbers. So essentially we have two positive integers, or zero. The digits are stored in reversed order and each of their nodes contain a single digit. Add the two numbers and return the sum as a linked list. You may assume the two numbers do not contain any leading zero except the number zero itself. So essentially what this is asking us to do is to take two numbers and add them together. So for example, here we have 342 plus 465 equals 807. Now, instead of giving us just integers, it's going to be a linked list of integers in reverse order. So if you think back to when you're adding in, let's say, elementary school, the way the teacher asks you to add is if you have a few numbers like this. We have, let's say, 123 and 127. What the teacher would ask you to do is first add the smallest number together, and then, so 3 plus 7 is 10, and you would carry the 1. So in this case, you would have 1 plus 2 plus 2, that's 5. So in this case, we would have 250 is 123 plus 127. So what we're going to do is something similar. Now notice when we did this addition, we went from right to left. And the cool thing about this problem is that it's actually giving us the numbers from right to left. So if we go back and look at this, we see we have the 342 is coming backwards, right? The digits are sorted in reverse order. So we're going to imitate the same thing. We're going to take the first array is going to have 3, 2, 1. The next one, linked list, is going to have 7, 2, 1. So here we would have a linked list. The first one would be 3. The next one would be 2. And the final one here would be 1. And again here we're going to have a 7, a 2, and a 1 on this linked list. So what we need to do is write a program that does this for us. We have the 7 and the 3, and we have to add those two together. And when we're done with that, we're going to have this carry digit, right? We're going to carry. It's either going to be a 1 or a 0, right? We're never going to be above 1. We're never going to be below 0. It's either going to be 1 or 0. We can't take two digits, add them together, and get something that's higher than 19, right? Because the worst possible case is this is 10 that comes over and we're carrying a digit. We have a 9 and a 9, which will give us 19. So the highest carry digit we could have is a 1. So let's go ahead and look at what a solution for this might look like. So the first thing I'm going to do here is going to create some objects that we're going to return. So we're going to create this list node. Now notice the list node has two properties on it. It's got val and it's next. So it's just a singly linked list. So we're going to create a new value here called toRet, and that's just going to be the list node that we're going to return. And then before we do anything else, let's return toRet. Now the way that we're going to do this is we're going to loop through these nodes in the list until we get to the end. So we're just going to write a while loop, and we're going to say while neither one of these list items is null. Now, if one of them is null, that's fine. We're just going to treat it as a 0, because essentially a leading 0 is the same thing as a number that's just shorter. So we're going to check, well, L1 is not equal to null, or L2 is not equal to null. We're going to continue this loop. Okay, so as we're going through here, we have to be building onto this toRet list node. In order to do that, toRet that we need to return is going to be this first element in the list, but we need to iterate through the list. So for example, the object we're going to return, right? We have our first element here, and we're going to say this is our toRet variable, and this is going to be pointing to this node element here. Now in this case, our first 7 plus 3 is going to be 10, so we're going to have a 0 here, and then we're going to carry a 1. Now we're going to create a new element on the list, and we're going to have a new pointer that points to their current element in the list. So let's just call this one the current node. The current one is going to be pointing towards here as we go through the list. So then this is going to be 1 plus 2 plus 2 is 5. And we're not going to carry anything. And then we move on to the final element, which is going to be the 1 plus 1 is going to give us the 2. And then at that point, we're going to move current over to that variable, and that's just going to be tracking our way through the return list. So let's create that variable. Okay, next thing we will need to do is we need to initialize our variables. So the first time through the loop, we're going to check if they're null, and if they're null, we're going to create the toRet list node, and we're going to also assign current node to be the same list element. So they're both going to be pointing to that initial element there. Now, if it's a second time through, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new node, and we're going to update current node to point to that new node. Next, what we're going to do is fairly obvious. We're just going to add up the current elements and store it in a new variable called val. Now, this is just a shorthand syntax in C# saying if this is null, then just ignore this property and return it as null. And the double question mark means if the previous section of this statement is null, then it's going to be 0. So essentially what this is saying is if L1 is null, say 0, otherwise it can be whatever. And I add just parentheses around here just so it's a little bit more clear that this is L1 if it's not null, otherwise 0, and this is L2 if it's not null, otherwise 0, and then we're going to add the carry digit as well. Now what we have to do is update that carry digit, and if we're above 10, then we also need to take the modulus mod 10 to get the digit at the end for the actual value. Now we're just going to assign that to the current node, and then we're going to increment to our next values. The last thing we need to do is if we've looped through everything, both list 1, list 2 are null, we've reached the end, we still need to check our carry digit to see if we're carrying another 1 over. Then we need to create a new node and assign that 1 to that value. And that should be it. Let's go ahead and run our code and see if it works. Looks like we forgot to declare carry. Looks like it works, so let's go ahead and submit it. There we go. So it looks like we passed everything. You can see some of my last runs here as well. But the runtime is average, memory usage average. Again, you can probably speed this up quite a bit. This is just a very simple way of solving this problem. I hope it helped you understand the problem and work on your questions. Thanks for watching.